From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is U.S. Farm Report.
Welcome to U.S. Farm Report this weekend. I'm Tyne Morgan, and here's what's in store over the next 60 minutes. Grain prices in a free fall to finish July, but are prices too low?
You tell me when the American farmer has gotten out of those old crop positions.
Low prices are creating a silent stress among farmers. And as they pull back, a couple major ag equipment manufacturers announce layoffs. An unlikely connection.
Building race cars, racing race cars has definitely helped me be a better farmer, which is strange to say.
From ChatGPT to virtual reality, how this Arkansas farmer's untraditional ways are making him a maverick in the field. And an Iowa town obsessed with one grump.
This guy got off of the railroad tracks one day and he just grumped his way around town until they finally got him to break a smile. And then he decided to live here.
We're off to Reedland, Iowa as we travel the countryside with Andrew McCrea. Now for the news, USDA says money is on the way to producers who say they experience discrimination under its farm lending programs. The Biden administration issuing the payments to eligible producers under the Inflation Reduction Act's Discrimination Financial Assistance Program. Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack announcing $2.2 billion in payments. They're aimed to provide financial assistance to operators who say they experienced discrimination prior to January 2021. Vilsack says this one-time program has provided assistance to 43,000 individuals in 50 states.
What we're attempting to do is to really create a new narrative for the department. Depending upon an individual circumstances, the awards range from $3,500 to the statutory cap of $500,000. While this financial assistance is not compensation for anyone's losses or pain endured, it is an acknowledgement. And my hope is that this financial assistance will help many farmers stay on their farms, contribute to our nation's food supply, and continuing to do what they love to do.
John Boyd, the president of the National Black Farmers Association, releasing a statement following the announcement, calling it a huge win, but saying, quote, the payments are a bittersweet victory because many challenges remain for black farmers, end quote. These programs from USDA also drawing legal challenges. Well, the ongoing downturn in the ag economy is forcing another ag manufacturer to make cuts. The latest is Kinsey Manufacturing. The company announcing it is laying off 193 people out of the 815 that work at its facility in Williamsburg, Iowa. Employees were notified on Wednesday, and the layoffs went into effect on Thursday. Kinsey releasing a statement to U.S. Farm Report saying, quote, we deeply regret the necessity of this action. The decision was not made lightly, and it is a direct response to current ag market realities, end quote. Kinsey was founded 59 years ago. It's known for its planters, grain carts, and tillage equipment. And we continue to follow the latest developments regarding layoffs at John Deere. TV stations in Illinois reporting 134 employees are being laid off from the company's seeding and cylinder divisions in Moline. This is in addition to the job cuts of salaried workers we've told you about, which impacted just under 500 people in Iowa and Illinois. Illinois warned notice providing a job-by-job breakdown of those salaried positions cut from its headquarters in Moline and the East Moline Harvester Works. Farm Journal team putting together this graphic showing the majority of the jobs were in IT and technology, along with engineering and manufacturing and project and program management. Deere officials continue to say the changes are being made due to reduced demand for products, and that, as stated in the second quarter earnings call, industry sales are expected to drop by 20%. Also, AGCO announcing earlier this month in a filing it plans to cut up to 6% of its salaried workforce. Now we're getting a better picture of the company's financial situation. The ag machinery maker reporting net sales of $3.2 billion in the second quarter. That's a drop of 15.1% compared to the second quarter of last year. It's reporting a net loss of $4.92 per share. That includes the estimated loss of its grain and protein business that, as we have reported, is for sale. That's it for the news. Well, only 5% of the Corn Belt may be experiencing drought conditions right now. That's compared to 59% this time last year. But it's a very different story out east and out west. We'll have a check of your forecast coming up next.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Pioneer. Pioneer brand corn has game-winning statistics like a 10 bushel per acre yield advantage. Pioneer brand corn. Your best year starts here. U.S. Farm Report weather is brought to you by H&S Manufacturing. Maximize baleage yield with less time and effort with the LW1100 line wrap bale wrapper. You can wrap round or square bales, and the automatic operating mode allows for a one-person operation.
Well, the latest drought monitor showing drought improvement in parts of Texas and the southeast this week, but drought conditions growing in Kansas, parts of the plains, and even northern Wisconsin. Meteorologist Jack Van Meter joining us now with the latest look at weather.
Yeah, take a look at the drought monitor that just came out yesterday. As we can see, a couple new spots of dryness really showing up on the country, especially up in Montana, where that drought is unfortunately getting worse. I know they're having some problems out there with moisture, and actually with those wildfire conditions as well. Down in the Four Corner states in New Mexico, parts of Texas still going to be dry, but it does look like some relief is coming up very, very soon. And now for the eastern part of our country, still drying out too, but they are about to get some storms the next couple days and hopefully retrieve some moisture as well. As we can see those really dry conditions down south there. Take a look at our jet stream. So good news is that big ridge of high pressure in the middle of the country will start to fall apart come by the middle of next week and actually start relieving everybody of these high temperatures and better yet, dry conditions for the plain states. So as I put this in motion from Sunday, we see this area of very, very hot temperatures. First off, broadening out, meaning it is losing its strength as it stretches out. What's going to happen is it's going to stretch out and then get smushed by a low pressure system that is coming from the north. And we could see that in just a couple days, as we can see just a hint of that trough starting to come down from the Dakotas and move its way through the Great Lakes states, which is great news there because we will actually start to be seeing some more rainfall. As we can see, as that trough starts to make its way in, it really deposits a lot of moisture all the way, pretty much actually from Montana all the way down to New York City, as we can see there, which is great news once again for those, especially for a lot of those states which are going to be dry. And also take a look at Florida, starting to see a lot of rainfall potentially from the tropical storm or hurricane that may form off that depression in the Atlantic. So it's something also that we need to keep a very close eye on. For flooding potential though, thankfully it is relatively low these next couple days. As we can see just that slug of moisture on Sunday and especially down in the Four Corners stage, which will be great news there because they've been very, very dry. Now for Monday of next week, as we can see down in Minnesota all the way out through Wisconsin, might be in that elevated state of flooding. Now for severe storms, again, just a little bit out here in Colorado, and it's going to be especially for the eastern part of the country where we're seeing some of that severe weather risk. Hopefully, though, none of it manifests, but hopefully it manifests in a lot of rain.
Thanks, Jack. Well, corn and soybean prices continue to crumble. We'll tell you what's putting so much pressure on prices, plus try to find the silver lining in it all. That's with Mark Gold and Mike North next. Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report this weekend. Mike North as well as Mark Gold joining us. Mike, you look at what's going on in the grains and the oilseed complex. I mean, absolutely brutal. It has been a bloodbath to finish July, hoping that we would start on a more positive note in August. That has not happened. But let's talk about the why. Why are we seeing such pressure on prices right now?
Well, I think you don't have to look much further back than the quarterly stocks report to speak to that. Reality is on-farm stocks are massive. We're getting to that time of the year when ultimately guys are preparing for the coming crop. They're cleaning bins out. And we just had a little rally in this market that incentivized movement. And so a lot of grain came to town, and that in concert with some rain that just hit the market, putting pressure on key technical numbers in the market, namely $4. And, you know, as we broke through that yesterday, it just provides a little bit more momentum to the downside for the time being.
Mark, do you think we are too overdone? At this point, are prices too low?
Well, I think The experts out here have budgeted in a 183, 184 corn crop. Are we going to get that? I don't think so. I think there's too many holes in the crop, whether it's North Carolina, Kansas, Nebraska, Eastern Iowa. You know, we've had a lot of problems out here. But for the most part, the country's in really good shape. Big crops get bigger. And I think the market's already budgeted all of this in. Plus, you look at the massive fund short position. They're short 350,000 corn, 200 and something thousand beans. That's 550,000 contracts between just the two of them, let alone add in the meal, oil, and the wheat. They're massive short positions. Now, how much lower can they drive this thing? You tell me. You tell me when the American farmer has gotten out of those old crop positions. I've always said the markets won't rally until the farmer is out of the grain. They started the year with record crops in the bin. They've been coming out of it in the last 30 days, but I still think there's more yet to come. But I think we're starting to slow this downside momentum, but it's been a rough July.
A really rough July. But there is some good news in it, and maybe that is the export sales. So, Mike, looking at some of the recent export sales just this week, USDA reporting a daily sale of 132,000 metric tons of soybeans for delivery to China. That news coming out Thursday. Wednesday, we're seeing a daily sale of 104,000 metric tons of corn for delivery to unknown destinations during the 2024-2025 marketing year. So we've seen a couple export sales this week. We saw some last week. You know, is this the silver lining of these low prices right now?
It is. And, you know, I tell people all the time that a healthy market rewards both participants. And for the last several years, we've had a market that's really been farm friendly. It's really allowed, you know, producers of grain to benefit from higher prices. But now look at the buyer. The buyer isn't necessarily enjoying high prices. It's totally counterintuitive to their business model. So in order for them to find their moment in the sun, they need low prices. And so it's not surprising that, you know, as we bring the markets lower, we've just seen two of the biggest export weeks we've had all year. And we're 37% ahead on corn sales year over year. So as you work your way into lower markets, it now brings the buyer back into the game. And Mark talked about the big yields potential and big crops get bigger. Well, we're going to need a buyer for that. And we're not only just going to need a buyer, we're going to need a willing buyer with an appetite for that. And that happens in lower markets. And what that eventually will do then is bring momentum back to the upside as we start to introduce new issues. And I think to build off of Mark's point, the question we're asking right now is, what will be that issue? What will be that stick of dynamite that falls into this market and gets everybody excited and brings that spec short off of this massive level and back to the buy side and brings the natural buyer back with an appetite?
Well, we could actually see some U.S. acreage changes coming up in USDA's August report. We're going to talk about that when we come back, plus livestock market, some questions that need to be answered there. We'll check in with Mark as well as Mike on that when we come back. Welcome back. Mark Gold and Mike North rejoining us. All right, Mark, USDA's now saying this week that they will review all available data. That includes FSA data as well as RMA data on planted and harvested acreage for various crops. And they say if the review warrants changes, they will update acreage estimates in the August report coming up on August 12th. So could this possibly be bullish that provides some fuel to this market?
Well, I think there's two things here. You've got potentially big yield out there, but it looks like the general talk is that they could cut corn acres by 1 million acres, which would offset some of that increase in the yield. Hopefully we'll see that. I think it's a very positive sign that the USDA is going to all this information on the August report. I can't remember us having ever been able to look at real numbers in August. So I think that's a positive. And, you know, we generally make our lows the first Monday of the month. So this coming Monday will be the first Monday of the month. That may be the low time frame. We come out and see a crop progress report Monday night that may be a little bit friendly out here with Kansas and Nebraska getting that horrendous weather in the last 10 days. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of a shift Monday night into Tuesday and maybe a little bit of a start to the change in the atmosphere out here. It's almost like, that movie, The Exorcist, where the little girl is spinning her head, "Mommy, make it stop." Well, we're all ready for this bear market to stop. So hopefully we'll see it soon.
Leave you to compare the current market to The Exorcist, Mark.
That's great.
Okay, Mike, you mentioned the livestock markets. And as we look at specifically the feeder cattle market, there's a lot of questions, a lot of head scratching going on with what's going on. Is it tied to the stock market? Really, what is the reason that we're seeing in this current movement in the feeder cattle market?
Well, I mean, let's face it, we have been in a little bit of a downtrend through the month of July, right alongside of, what's going on in corn. And, as we talk about some of the dynamics at a higher level, we had a stock market that was trading in a very robust manner as the confidence of a Trump presidency played out, and the business friendly bias that went with that. That's been, maybe changed, or at least, put on pause as we now have a new candidate on the Democrat ballot. Reality is that there has been some shifting sand at a very broad level. We've taken cattle prices, back off just as sharply, and so feeders are responding to that. All the way around, though, I think if you look at the bigger picture, this market has been very range bound, and sell-offs like this are not unusual. We've been watching it happen really for months. And as a byproduct of, what's going on in corn markets, I think you might find that this starts to, put a little bit of support back underneath this market, especially from a feeder cattle perspective. So, all the way around, I don't think we should read too far into this. We still have a very tight supply. And while we are seeing a little pushback from the consumer, it's not enough to change the overarching dynamics of this market.
Mark, do you agree with that?
Well, I agree that, we've been in this tight range. If you look at the moving averages, they've all just huddled right into this narrow band. Today, we broke away from that hard. We've been above it and below it several times. Look, a lot of false starts, but today looks fairly serious to me. But as Mike said, you still got box beef at incredibly high prices. Demand hasn't backed off. The cash cattle market has been hanging in there from 188 to 196, depending on what part of the country you're in. And yeah, we'll probably come down a little bit. But every time it seems like the feeder cattle break the fat cattle market, the fat cattle comes right back again. But I think you've got to be a little careful out here. This feeder cattle action today, in my opinion, is pretty bearish.
Mark, Mike, thank you so much for joining us this weekend. We need to take a quick break, and then we'll be checking in with Machinery Pete for Tractor Tales. That is next.
Hey folks, welcome back to Tractor Tales. This week we're off to Ohio to check out a John Deere Bee that's still in its work clothes.
This is a 1944 Bee. My grandfather bought it brand new. He had worked with horses, all up until then. It did everything on the farm that he needed, whatever he needed, but he was so much older that I never got to see it run or in operation when he retired. My uncle took over the operation. He also ran his own dairy farm, so he's pretty busy. When everybody retired, the tractor just pretty much went into the barn. At my grandpa's auction, my dad brought it to his place to keep it in the family. Dad didn't do much with it. Didn't need much then, but it did by the time I got it here. My grandson's family had bought it, took it to their place, and then the oldest grandson got old enough with the one car garage, and he wanted his car in the garage more than his tractor. Grandpa, will you take it over? Here it is. So had to do a little bit of work to it, but it does run. It needed both water pipes. The radiator was good. Needed both water pipes. The carburetor definitely had a chunk of rust stuck in it. Guy down the road rebuilt it. Pretty much just cleaned up. Truthfully, I think I just want to leave it as is and let the family decide when I'm done with it. Leaks a little oil, drips a little gas and everything like that, but I'll get those all fixed up and everything, but they all got to have a little bit of something laying underneath them, I think.
Thanks, Greg. Well, have you thought about using AI tools like ChatGPT on the farm? What about virtual reality as a tool walking your field? Up next, we'll introduce you to a farmer who thinks about tech differently, and that may be thanks to his racing roots.
You're watching U.S. Farm Report. Trusted, timely, tradition. Mavericks in the Field on U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by John Deere. Connecting your farm is easier than ever. From just the basics to being able to make real-time decisions wherever you are, John Deere has the tech you need.
Welcome back. Well, there is so much technology out there today, but figuring out what actually works on the farm can be a time-consuming task. For one Northeast Arkansas farmer, he simply thinks about tech differently, and that may be thanks to his racing roots. This weekend, we introduce you to Travis Center, a true maverick in the field.
I mean, it's not uncommon for us to make 75 bushel beans, 80 bushel beans, 90 bushel beans.
If proof is in the pudding,
We make good soybeans here.
these soybeans are a sign of how paying attention to every detail can add up.
So I hate not recording data. When we're going across the field, no matter what we're doing, I want to make sure we're recording and getting that information.
That's a lot of data considering Center farms well over 20,000 acres. They farm some on their own, but they also partner with another farmer in the area.
Yeah, I've always been interested in computers, always wanted to, I build computers, I work on, technology equipment. I'm always trying to be, cutting edge.
But walk into Travis's dad's office and there's a clear difference in technology.
I have an iPhone, but no, I don't have a computer.
How Travis Sr. keeps records, well, it's with this.
Every year of my farming career, I have one of these books with planting dates, varieties, irrigation. I run out of pages.
He may be more old school, but he takes great value and pride in what his son has already done.
With my son coming on board helping us, has really opened up things. He's brought lots of new things to the farm that makes it easier.
He says Travis isn't just the technology whisperer on their farm. He's everybody's go-to guy in this area for technology.
And if he don't know how to do it, he'll learn. I saw him sit in there for days trying to figure out something, and he'll get it. I mean, he can really, really do it.
And how his son learns and keeps up on the latest tech trends is experimenting.
It's a lot of trial and error. It's like, you want to go all in and buy the next greatest thing, but that's not always the best way. And just, sometimes take a chance. That's the big one is don't be afraid to take that chance.
When he finds something that works, Travis goes all in. That was the case when he was trying to find a way to stay connected to all their machines on the farm. And I mean all. We're talking 33 tractors, 3 cotton pickers, 3 combines, 4 sprayers, excavators, and 20 semi-trucks.
I finally, worked out a deal. I said, what if we just get everything connected, get auto stereo on everything, put displays and everything, do recording on everything, because that makes life a lot easier. You don't have to worry about what's recording here, what's recording there. Just bring it all in.
Travis may have a love for technology, but he also has a love for racing.
In my previous, I call it my previous life now, I was a race car driver. And not only a race car driver, I was a race car builder.
For 20 years, Center traveled all across the country and even the world, building and driving race cars.
Data collection in racing is probably more so than in farming. I had extreme amounts of data. I had GPS on my race car in 2005 to record where I go, where I'm at, all this information that I would study and try to be better. And so that exact thing is what amplified my sensors, my data collection for farming. So that ability to collect that information, to use it, and to use it to my advantage.
That may also be why Travis is willing to take risks and try things that are unheard of on the farm. One example is the way he's grasped on to artificial intelligence, or AI.
Taking ChatGPT, for example, I mean, you can throw some of your data in there and spit out, you know, what you're expected to make. And if you can throw enough information and give it the right prompts, I feel like we could, you know, change the way we make our decision making.
Last summer, before you could even upload files to ChatGPT, Travis and his son created their own chat model. The goal was to take their 10-year yield history in every field, add in planting and harvest dates, the varieties or hybrids they planted, and combine that with weather data.
So when you start thinking about that, like you can really figure out, like, so if I planted at this particular date with this particular variety, I know my pollination date, I know what temperature I'm going to have this year. Maybe this will help me generate better yield information so I can market better. So it opens up a whole realm of possibilities when you are able to throw in more information to this.
Another wild idea he's using on the farm:
make them really big, and then you can actually see it laying on the floor like this. So then you can take the weather itself and exactly follow it.
virtual reality.
It's extremely impressive how your eyes are basically your cursor. And you just look at something and you click your fingers together and it works.
He admits today that VR headsets are bulky, but in the future, he thinks the technology will be in a pair of sunglasses.
If you imagine 10 years from now, this is going to be smaller. And I'm walking in the field, I see a weed. You can basically, you can do it now. You can take a picture of it. You can enter that in ChatGPT. You can ask what that is and how I can kill it. And it'll tell you.
He says whether it's when he's spraying, planting, or harvesting, he looks at that data every night.
So when I get home from work, I'll probably spend 2 or 3 hours on a computer every night, going through fields, just looking at maps, just making sure everything got planted right, everything got sprayed right. And so that's usually the way I do it. So
Every single night?
Every single night I spend 2 hours on a computer.
That's crazy. No matter what time you get home?
No matter what time. Yeah, it could be midnight.
By carefully calculating every move on his farm, he's controlling what he can instead of leaving some of those things up to chance.
I'll enter all that information every single night after we get done, so I know exactly how much grain is in the field. And then I'll send out a report the next day of exactly, how many acres we cut, how much grain's in this bin, how much is here, what the average moisture was. I mean, there's lots of information that we try to keep up with.
From the racetrack to the farm field, Center knows the race to farm effectively and efficiently isn't slowing down.
Even me today, I know a lot of things, and but I'm always learning. I'm always, that's pretty neat. That's cool. How can we, can we integrate that?
Travis's biggest fan just may be his dad, who together make one great team.
I'm gonna tell you, I wouldn't want to farm without him.
Seems like you guys are a good team.
We are. Yeah, we work good together. Yeah.
Center is actually part of a farmer focus group, and one tech he's excited to use this fall is actually something he suggested to John Deere. Now in his app, when you pull into a field to harvest, the app will actually tell you the time you are scheduled to finish harvesting that field. Center says being that calculated will help their operation plan better for moving equipment and other logistical issues that can slow them down during the fall. Well, when we come back, a glimpse of ag around the globe is next. Now for a glimpse of ag around the world. Chinese soybean stocks have reportedly reached record levels. The China National Grain and Oils Information Center reporting the country's soybean stocks reached 1.38 million metric tons at the end of last month. That's up 29% from the previous month and up more than 86% from a year ago. Soybean stocks at crushing plants continue to rise, totaling more than 7 million metric tons. That's up more than 14% from last month and almost 30% higher than a year ago. And this could mean headwinds for U.S. producers and new crop soybean exports once harvest does start. However, U.S. exports of pork to Mexico are expected to continue to remain strong. That's because experts say Mexico is experiencing a reduction in hog inventory. It's due to months of financial losses, leading to fewer hogs being available. That is driving up prices as demand outstrips supply. Inflation is also a big problem in Mexico. There's also been extended droughts in the country, leading consumers to substitute pork for more expensive beef cuts. This has led to a surge in U.S. pork exports due to price differences, further tightening supplies in the Mexican market. That's a glimpse of ag around the world. When we come back, between the two main presidential candidates today, Who would be better for ag when it comes to biofuels? Chip's Corner is next. Welcome back to Chip's Corner this weekend. Chip, I was talking to ProFarmer Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer, and he said at speaking engagements recently from farmers and ranchers, he's getting this question: who would be better for agriculture, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? And he said, you know what? That is a hard question to answer, but he's going back to biofuels. And I know you challenged Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley on that topic as well.
Yes, absolutely. And as we get closer and closer to November 4th, we all have to gain a better understanding of exactly what the two candidates stand for. So, and biofuels is going to be at the heart of that topic or that question for so many producers out there. So when I asked Senator Grassley about Trump's potential wish-washiness on biofuels, he really didn't take too kindly to it.
It's a fight to keep biofuels prominent as it should be, because it's good for farming and it's good for good jobs in rural America. Yeah. It's good for the environment because it's cleaner burning than fossil fuels. It's good for national defense. Everything about biofuels is good. You can't find any fault with it, but oil industry doesn't like it. The liberals don't like internal combustion engines. They want electric cars. So you're fighting it wherever it is. Just look, after 4 years of the Democrat administration, we still don't have RVOs for biodiesel.
Yeah, there's Chip, a lot of issues here. Yes.
A lot of issues. And I know that you challenged Grassley also on former President Trump. He was at a rally and he mentioned specifically sustainable aviation fuels and some of those, and that he wouldn't support it. And so, that was something that you pressed Grassley on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What Trump said in Michigan is that we're going to stop all of this stuff. So you have to wonder exactly how serious he is about comments that they're going to stop all of the advancement on these biofuels, including sustainable aviation fuel. There is so much of the biofuels future is relying on sustainable aviation fuels. Just as Secretary Vilsack, he will tell you all about it. But there is so much of the future riding on sustainable aviation fuels that to cast it to the side now would be a big hit on ethanol and biodiesel.
Yeah, biofuels is relying heavily on it, and so are corn and soybean prices specifically. Those are relying heavily on finding that new demand. Chip, thank you so much. And you celebrated your 30th anniversary of AgriTalk. I know you had Mike Adams, you had Ken Root. I think you had John Harris on. That show was Thursday, right? So viewers can go to agritalk.com to listen to that.
30 years going strong. Ken, Mike, and John were great. Yep.
Oh, what an awesome blast from the past, but a nod to the history there. Chip, thank you so much. You can hear Chip 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. every day for AgriTalk. All right, we need to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're actually traveling to Iowa, where one small town is celebrating being grumpy, but it's not what you think. So we're traveling the countryside with Andrew McCrea next.
Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rourke on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Well, telling someone they're grumpy typically is not a compliment, but in one rural Iowa town, it comes with an honorable award. Andrew McCrea has the story of why as he travels the countryside for American Countryside this weekend.
When I passed this sign for Reedland, Iowa, that proclaimed it had 857 friendly people and one old grump, I just had to know, who is this old grump and why are they so popular?
There is something interesting about Reedland, Iowa. A quick drive around town will quickly show you that. It's a well-kept small town that seems to have a fascination with one person, an old grump, in fact, and I just had to know what all of this was about.
This guy got off of the railroad tracks one day and he just grumped his way around town until they finally got him to break a smile, and then he decided to live here. So
that's the story Bonnie Wittenberg shares from this small town about 20 miles northeast of Waterloo, Iowa. That story from decades ago may be fact or fiction, but there is a grump living here in Reedland yet today. Members of the local community club saw a town in Indiana that voted on a town grump each year and brought the idea here. In 1990, Reedland had its first grump. In fact, every grump since is listed on the Wall of Fame here in town, including Bonnie.
Certainly wasn't the girl you'd have chose for homecoming queen, so this is quite something special.
Each year, the community club elects a town grump.
No, it's a beautiful town with one grump.
As former town grump Ron Leistico explains, the term grump is used a bit loosely.
It's a lot of it's not being grumpy. It's kind of the other way around, but that's volunteer work.
And the grump does volunteer a lot around town. Ron says there are many events the grump assists with.
The grump days is the biggest thing. Other things, we have our historical society has an ice cream day where you buy your Sunday ice cream for a quarter.
For a small town, Reedland does quite well, thanks to many volunteers led by the grump. And the grump tends to show up on signs around town and even the name of a popular establishment. Being grump is a big deal.
I said, well, how can I run around saying what a great community I'm a part of without saying I'm willing to be the grump? So I said, okay, I'll do it.
Of course, the grumps are urged to be grumpy, even if they are not. After all, the grump has an image to uphold.
Sometimes I get picked on and they say, show me your grumpy face.
The ability to at least look grumpy is an important quality to have. But each of the grumps will tell you it's about much more than your facial expression.
It is kind of an honor, and I'm proud to be a grump.
Perhaps Bonnie sums it up well when she shares the true meaning of being the town grump.
Grumps are lovers. Yeah. They love their community, they love the people, and they want to be a part of it all.
And perhaps you too will find yourself driving past this town like I did, and you can get a glimpse of the town grump as well. But don't be surprised if they're smiling. Traveling the countryside in Reedland, Iowa, I'm Andrew McCrea.
Thanks, Andrew, and you can hear more from his travels at AmericanCountryside.com. All right, when we come back, Oregon ranchers are battling intense wildfires, and the losses have been absolutely devastating. From the Farm is next. You may have heard about wildfires in California and Colorado, but one of the most devastating wildfires this year is in Oregon, and the mounting losses are taking an emotional and financial toll on ranchers there. More than 1.1 million acres have burned in Oregon, and with the flames still not under control, it will go down as one of the most devastating wildfire years in the state's history. Clint Sexton ranches in eastern Oregon. He says between cattle lost and grazing areas burned, the losses are too much to count.
I don't even want to speculate. I mean, that's pretty public news that the 300 head in the Durkee fire were lost. The fire that's in Harney and Grant County, I know one producer lost probably hundreds. This part of the world's different because a lot of people don't feed cows maybe 30, 60 days a year. I mean, they graze them cattle out. It's just a budgetary thing and a management thing that they will have to work through. And emotionally, it's tough on those people, especially those generational ranches.
Sexton was fortunate. On July 20th, as the fires raged and closed in on the land where his cattle were, he was able to get the cattle out. That's thanks to fellow ranchers who showed up with trucks and trailers to help.
I work for Select Sires, and every one of those trucks that showed up they were all customers. Anyway, we got the cattle out and went right back to a customer's feedlot. They were ready for them. And we were pretty fortunate.
Fire Relief Fund is where all of your proceeds, that's where your check's going to need to be made out.
The emotions were also high this week as Superior Livestock held a benefit sale as part of their regular sale in Winnemucca. Cattle producers donating animals for the sale, that money to go back and help those in need.
These are primarily purebred breeders that have made donations in sale credit or semen credit. They're not directly focused on their customers alone. They're just on the general beef industry in Oregon and the devastation that some of these people are dealing with. It's 2 or 3 people that I know of burnt their entire ranch. They may not have lost a cow, but they burnt all their private grazing ground.
A touching gesture as the ranching community comes together at a time of need, and the fires continue to burn. As of Tuesday, the state still had reports of 100 active fires.
This year in particular, but most years, is there's just lots of fuel. I mean, there's fuel on the ground. Some of these are areas that have burned before. There hasn't been necessarily a cleanup after a burn. So that there's just a lot of fuel.
If you want to help, there are ways you can do so. Just visit orcattle.com. A link to the Oregon Cattlemen's Wildfire Relief Fund is at the top of the page. All right, that's all the time we have this weekend. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to join us next weekend as we work to build on our tradition. Have a great weekend, everyone.
U.S. Farm Report is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Broadcast.